In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
Preventing a disrupted presidential election and transition. August 3rd, 2020. Executive Summary. In June 2020, the Transition Integrity Project, TIP, conveyed a bipartisan group of over 100 current and former senior government and campaign leaders and other experts in a series of 2020 election crisis scenario planning exercises. The results of all 4 tabletop exercises were alarming. We assess with a high degree of likelihood that November's elections will be marked by chaotic legal, political landscape. We also assess that President Trump is likely to contest the results by both legal and extra-legal means in an attempt to hold on to power. Recent events including the president's own unwillingness to commit to abiding by the rules of the election, the Attorney General's embrace of the president's groundless electoral fraud claims, and the unprecedented deployment of federal agents to put down left-wing protests underscore the extreme lengths to which President Trump may be willing to go in order to stay in office. This report, TIP, explains the basis of our assessment. Our findings are bolstered by the historical experience of Bush v. Gore, 2000, and other U.S. electoral dysfunctions. The closest analogy may be the election of 1876, a time of extreme partisanship and rampant disenfranchisement, where multiple states preferred competing slates of electors. An election was only resolved through a grand political bargain days before inauguration. Among these findings we highlight in the report, the concept of election night is no longer accurate and indeed is dangerous. We face a period of contestation stretching from the first day a ballot is cast in mid-September until January 20th. The winner may not, and we assess likely will not, be known on election night as officials count mail-in ballots. This period of uncertainty provides opportunities for an unscrupulous candidate to cast doubt on legitimacy of the process and to set up unprecedented assault on the outcome. Campaigns, parties, and the press and the public may be educated to adjust expectations starting immediately. A determined campaign has opportunity to contest the election into January 2021. We anticipate lawsuits, divergent media narratives, attempts to stop the counting of ballots, and the protest drawing people from both sides. President Trump, the incumbent, will very likely use the executive branch to aid his campaign strategy, including through the Department of Justice. We assess that there is a chance the president will attempt to convince legislatures and or governors to take action, including legal action, to defy the popular vote. To defy the popular vote. Oh, I promised I wasn't going to editorialize the cold open. Federal law provides little guidance for how Congress should resolve irregularities when they convene in a joint session January 6th, 2021. Particular concern is how the military would respond in the context of uncertain election results. Here, recent evidence offers some reassurance, but it is inconclusive. The administrative transition process itself might be highly disrupted. Participants in our exercise of all backgrounds and ideologies believe that Trump would prioritize personal gain and self-protection over ensuring an orderly administrative handoff to his successor. Trump may use pardons to thwart future criminal prosecutions, arrange business deals with foreign governments that benefit him financially, attempt to bribe and silence associates, declassify sensitive documents, and attempt to divert federal funds to his own businesses. These risks can be mitigated. The worst outcome of this exercise are far from a certainty. The purpose of this report is not to frighten, but to spur all stakeholders to action. Our legal rules and political norms don't work unless people are prepared to defend them and to speak out when others violate them. It is incumbent upon elected officials, civil society leaders, and the press to challenge authoritarian actions in the courts, in the media, and in the streets through peaceful protests. Specifically, recommendations include A plan for a contested election. There is a crisis. Events will unfold quickly, and sleep-deprived leaders will be asked to make consequential decisions quickly. Thinking through options now will help to ensure better decisions. Approach this as a political battle and not just a legal battle. In the event of electoral contestation, sustained political mobilizations will likely be crucial for ensuring transition integrity. Dedicated staff and resources need to be in place at least through the end of January. B. Focus on readiness in the states, providing political support for the complete and the accurate count. Governors, secretaries of state, attorney generals, and legislatures can communicate and reinforce laws and norms and be ready to confront irregularities. Election officials will need political and public support to see the process through to completion. C. Address the two biggest threats head on: lies about voter fraud and escalating violence. Voting fraud is virtually non-existent, but Trump lies about it to create narratives designed to politically mobilize his base and to create the basis for contesting the results should he lose. The potential for voting conflict is high, particularly since Trump encourages his supporters to take up arms. D. Anticipate a rocky administrative transition. Transition teams will likely need to do two things simultaneously: defend against Trump's reckless actions on his way out of the office, and find creative solutions to ensure landing terms are able to access the information and the resources they need to begin to prepare governing.
The Abracast: Occult, History, Conspiracy, and Violence.
Hey, coming at you here from deep inside the Stigmata Studios podcast studio in the Stigmata Studios building in the steel buckle of the Rust Belt. This is the Abercast, and I am John Towers. So here we go. I normally don't do these kind of things, but here's a trigger warning. This might get a little political, but listen, it's not politics. It's not politics. So one of the taglines in the show is occult history, conspiracy, and violence. So I think a lot of people get bent out of shape or misunderstand when I say conspiracy, because when I look at conspiracies, I don't need secret fucking space programs. I don't need HARP lasers and projected energy weapons. I don't even need Obama as a clone of some pharaoh from fucking ancient Egypt somewhere. I don't need any of that, because I see conspiracies everywhere in real time, and it usually has to do with the media or the political structure. And when I attack these things, I feel like a lot of people think that I'm talking straight politics, but I'm not talking straight politics. And here's the thing with this. This COVID-19 2020 situation has given us 2 chances to look at gigantic conspiracies that are unfolding in real time. The first one of these was a episode that we did back in May 29th, I think. And it was called Safety Theater, Masks, Models, and the Media. And we dove into this think tank's white paper, I guess it would be called, or report or summary or whatever, explaining the buzzwords and the dog's whistles and stuff that the media would need to use to convince people to wear masks. And it was an insidious work. And I really actually am proud to do that episode. However, here we go. Here's another one, almost in real time. This game, this is a report on a war game that they say bipartisan experts ran in June. But and you can see it in the in the summary, but like with everything we talk about here, we put it all into context and we let the work speak for itself. And as we get through these 4 games, these dudes wargamed out. There's 4 different scenarios, and so here they're all like, Trump did this, and Trump's going to do this, and Trump's going to do this in their summary. But wait till we get to the actually what happened in the game. And I'm not going to try to bring too much attention to it. This is it, because like I said, I don't want to do open politics, but at the same time, you can look around and see people getting ready for what happened during this war game that they did. And they could say they're bipartisan or whatever. I happen to know that George Soros actually funded this thing. So I don't know I don't know, bipartisan, whatever. Like, I actually think that we're not in a left and right paradigm anymore. We're in an America/globalist paradigm. And so I think that you can have globalists on either side. So maybe it was bipartisan in that way. But like I said, I am very interested in this summary because it's in real time. And I think that I've raised a couple eyebrows because the last couple episodes I've been talking about getting security food, getting some extra ammo if you can, rounding up some extra magazines for your weapons. I actually talked about it in the newsletter this month as well. And I think people are like, why? What's this all about? Like, I got an extra couple cans of carrots and stuff in my basement, and I'm like, that might not be enough, bros. And let me explain to you what these fucking globalists did during this war game. So war games, I think pretty much everyone could probably figure out. But what it is, it's not like a bunch of D&D. It's not a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons guys rolling dice and going through their fucking maze on their graph paper, right? This is big brains. These are gigantic political animals, people, experts that I believe that they actually had polling companies, like companies that do the polling, standing in to react as the public in this. And I know that John Podesta played he was the role of Joe Biden, and if you don't know John Podesta, I don't know, Google him or whatever. He's a fucking creep. But when we get into some of these outcomes, I think that you could definitely see like the Clintonian vibe that resonates through John Podesta, or maybe it's the Podestian vibe that resonates through the Clintons. I don't know. But we'll definitely see some of that here. So this is going to be long because some of these things are pretty long. So here, let's just get into it. Before I get going, I just want to remind everyone to check the website, Advertise.com. Featured topic links are all in there. The store section, I got a brand new spanking brand new set of tarot cards up there. It was my project for this year. I got them done. They're awesome cards. You can find out a ton of information about them. I do little videos and whatever. If you sign into the mailing list, you get used to my work in progress tarot card guide Google Doc, where I kind of explain my take on the different cards. And of course, don't forget to check out the Patreon and the Subscribe Star stuff too. This month's Fellow Craft episode on Patreon and Subscribe Star is, I think it's going to be the last, part 3 and the final episode on Count Saint Germain. Interesting, immortal, historical, alchemical wizard-like character. Check out the t-shirt store. I didn't realize I released like 4 or 5 different t-shirt designs last month. I mean, that's a lot. And while we're on the subject of Patreon and Subscribe Star, raise your glass, join me in thanking my Patreon and Subscribe Star people for supporting the show. Thank you guys very much. We're going to do a little bit here about the Transition Integrity Project. TIP was launched in late 2019 out of concern that the Trump administration may seek to manipulate, ignore, undermine, or disrupt the 2020 presidential election while transition process. Now, this does not take into account or add. It does not include everybody, including Hillary Clinton's advice to Joe to not concede under any circumstance. Do not concede under any circumstance, Joe. No one asked Joe about that, by the way. TIP takes no position on how Americans should cast their votes, or on the likely winner of the upcoming elections. Either major party candidate could prevail at the polls in November without resorting to, quote, dirty tricks, unquote. However, the administration of President Donald Trump has steadily undermined core norms of democracy and the rules of law, embraced numerous corruptions and authoritarian practices. This presents a profound challenge for those from either party who are committed to ensuring free and fair elections, peaceful transitions of power, and the stable administrative community in the United States. Administrative continuity, it says. So let this be also said that this does not make any reference to, I don't know what people are calling it now, Spygate, I guess, where the intelligence community of the United States of America were illegally bugging and interfering in the Trump campaign and the transition. There's not a word of that in this document. So that leads me to think that there's not a word of it that was taken into account when they were doing these Dungeons and Dragons games. These fucking old, worn out, I can just see them smoking their fucking, maybe they smoke vapes, I don't know, eating their pizza, fucking heavy petting children in the back room. Alright, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about these. I believe they're all bad actors and they're all full of shit, and I'm going to bear that out when we start getting to the results of these 4 games they played. about the scenario exercises, June 2020, just the tip, organizes 4 scenarios to identify a risk of rule of law to the integrity of the democratic process in the period between Election Day, November 3rd, 2020, and Inauguration Day, January 20, 2021, with an eye towards the mitigation and the prevention of worst-case outcomes. So remember that. They're doing this to mitigate and prevent worst-case outcomes. I want you to write it down, jot it down, keep it in your memory somewhere. At this point, it seems possible that either candidate may achieve a decisive electoral victory, but the goal of TIP's scenario exercise was to gain a better understanding of the tests our democratic institutions could face in the event that candidates defy the norms like Joe Biden and not accept or secede no matter what. That was Hillary Clinton's advice to Joe. No matter what. So in case the candidates defy the norms and have underpinned American political practice for decades, like sicking the FBI and the CIA on a political opponent, or the transition process of a duly elected president. It doesn't mention that right here either. So I'm going to wanted to examine some of the unknowns. How far might candidates go in contesting negative electoral outcomes? I wonder who's going to have problems contesting negative electoral outcomes. I wonder which side this game bears out. Who's going to have problems contesting negative electoral outcomes? American institutions hold up if one or both candidates refuse to play by the rules. All right, I'm going to jump. I'm already goddamn late. Key insights from the scenario exercises. The scenario planning exercises were conducted in June 2020. Developments include and have only confirmed that there is every reason to be concerned that our electoral rules and norms are under threat. In an interview with Chris Wallace, President Trump suggested that he might not abide by the results of the election if he lost. Is not what he said. The president deployed agents of the Homeland Security to Portland to suppress racial justice protesters, which is not what they were. They were rioters. Move that out. Okay, I'm going to skip through this because I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to get political. I want to get to the war game. This part is important, though. 2 words of caution about the findings of the exercise. First, TIP intentionally did not game legal strategies in any detail. Litigation will be an important part of the strategy for both sides, but we did not attempt to pass judgment on whether any particular claims or tactics would prevail. One question is whether a candidate is able to convince the state legislature to send a package of electoral college votes inconsistent with the certified popular vote. Even if a court disapproved of this action, Congress might nonetheless consider those votes on January 6th. So what this is saying is if one of these states, one of these swing states or whatever, can't figure out who won, instead of saying flipping a coin or however they decide to do it, go, okay, well, we're going to send the Republican electors in, or we're going to send the Democratic electors in. What if they send both sets of electors in? Who's going to figure that fucking shit out? Second, the exercises were not able to fully capture the ways in which the media will shape and drive public opinion, or how specific media outlets would cover events differently and drive increasingly partisan responses. Social media in particular will undoubtedly play a heavy role in how the public perceives the outcome of the election. Political operatives, both domestic and foreign, will very likely attempt to use social media to sow discord and even move people to violence. Social media companies' policy and enforcement decisions actions will be consequential and merits further exploration and consideration. So this, to me, is one of the most important. As you know, the episodes that we've done about social media, I hate it. And we already know that these people are already planning on pulling the plug on everybody that has anything to say that the media is not agreeing with. We know that just for a fact. Listen to what their CEOs and whatnot are saying. Look at what their fact checkers are doing right now. I think we can see something like on November 4th, Twitter just pulling the plug on Trump's Twitter account. That's gonna happen. That's gonna fucking happen. All right, I'm already running out of time, so I'm just going to jump through this thing until we get to these scenarios real fast. During the exercise, Team Trump and the GOP elected officials took following steps, calling for recounts in all states which victory was not already apparent. Well, that's obvious. Launching coordinated investigations at state and federal levels into alleged voting irregularities, attempting to halt counting of mail-in ballots by filing cases in state courts and leaning on Republican leaders to stop vote counting to certify an early result without waiting for turning out their well-organized and committed base to take to the streets in Trump's favor, in part by disseminating disinformation about the danger posed by pro-Biden demonstrators like Antifa violence, etc., relying on both Fox News and right-wing social media to echo and amplify pro-Trump messages and facilitate the harassment and bullying of elected officials, using federal agencies to justify or support Trump campaign and tactics. In one of the more aggressive moves undertaken in one of the tip exercises, Team Trump had Attorney Bill Barr order the seizures of mail-in ballots to ensure the vote counting would stop. Okay, skipping ahead. During the exercises, Team Biden and Democrats elected officials took the following steps. Organizing... Okay, so listen to this. I want to put a little note in your brain to see how many of these are happening or can possibly happen. Organizing 1,000 influencers to denounce efforts to steal the election. Organizing all living presidents to stand with Biden to denounce Trump administration efforts to subvert the democratic process. Recruiting moderate Republican governors such as Baker from Massachusetts and Hogan from Maryland to form an election protection coalition. Working with local Democratic elected officials to call on the adjunct general of the National Guard among willing representatives from the technology sector to monitor vote counting. Organizing a bipartisan National Day for Restoration of Democracy and National Day of Unity, both including faith leaders. Attempting a Capitol strike and a work stoppage as part of an overall effort to push corporate leaders to insist that ballots be counted. Skipping ahead here. A show of numbers in the streets and actions in the streets may be a decisive factor in determining what the public perceives as just and legitimate outcome. During TIPS exercises, Team Biden almost always called for and relied on mass protests to demonstrate the public's commitment to a legitimate outcome, with the objective of hardening the resolve of Democrat elected officials to fight and to take action and to dramatize the stakes. As a practical matter, however, participants in the exercise noted that the racial justice activists and others will likely act independently of the Biden campaign. Players repeatedly cautioned these social movements are independent and not beholden to a tool of the Democratic Party. Their supporter, you could see it. It's very transparent. Right, what this is saying to me right here. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. This one is very interesting. During several of the tip exercises, Biden attempted to enter into a negotiation with Team Trump about a pardon and graceful transition, but those overtures were consistently rejected in multiple instances. Team Biden offered to talk about pardons. In one instance, Team Biden's strategy in anticipation of ultimate loss, listen to this, in anticipation of ultimate loss, was so strengthened its hand in order to negotiate a package of structural reforms to the democratic system, including making D.C. and Puerto Rico states. So what would that do? Well, it would give them 4 more fucking 100% Democrat, 100% of the time, senators. That would give them the everlasting Senate majority forever and ever. Abolishing the Electoral College. And requiring Supreme Court justices to retire at 70. So I hadn't heard that one before, but I have heard talk about this packing the court business. So this executive report has recommendations to avoid a crisis. I'm just going to do the headings. Plan for a contested election. It's going to fucking happen. There's going to be a contested election. No one's going to know what the fuck is going on for months. Focus on a readiness in the states providing political support for a complete and accurate count. Get it right here to avoid the crisis. Name the elephant in the room. President Trump is not running a normal re-election campaign. Address the 2 biggest threats head on: the lies about vote fraud and escalating violence, and anticipate a rocky administrative transition. All right. So here we go. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to get into these 4 games, right?
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
Hello and welcome to the History Obscura podcast. This is the place where history's forgotten secrets are unshelved from my vast firelit book repository and reintroduced to the world. Learn stories of space exploration, medieval royals, smugglers, martyrs, and monsters. Subscribe to History Obscura for a fresh tale every Saturday and Tuesday night.
Game 1. The ambiguous result. The first game investigated a scenario in which the outcome of the election remained unclear from the election night and through the gameplay. The election outcome turned on results of 3 states: North Kakalaki, Michigan, and Florida. Different combinations of different outcomes from those states could result in a range of final election results, including in a 269-269 electoral college tie. Remember this. Why do they point this out? I'm going to explain it to you. Well, you'll hear it you'll hear it yourself in a second. A blue shift occurred during the game whereby an initially looked like a likely Trump win shifted into a second turn to looking like a Biden win. Turn 1, November 3rd to November 10th. The Trump campaign began the game by calling on Biden to concede based on election night in-person voting returns. Now, everyone is talking about the Red Mirage. It's everywhere now. But you have to remember, this game was ran in June, right? So this is before the curve. This is why you're hearing about this game is why you're hearing about the Red Mirage or whatever they're calling it. in-person voting returns which skewed towards President Trump and the GOP. The Trump campaign also used the bully pulpit of the presidency and its influence with right-wing media to lock in the election night returns, call into question mail-in ballots and legitimacy of post-election day vote counts, and enlist the support of Republican officials in several states to immediately halt further vote counting. The Trump campaign asked the DOJ to deploy federal agents across the nation to secure voting sites, to prepare the National Guard for possible deployment in order to maintain order against potential protests. Attorney General Barr instructed the DOJ to support litigation that would prevent further counting of mail-in boxes. Okay, Biden. On election night, the Biden campaign declared that victory was imminent and called for every vote to be counted. Remember this business about getting rid of the Electoral College? This is it. If they got rid of the Electoral College, whoever in New York, California, and Chicago, Cook County would decide presidential elections from here until the end of time. That's just it. That's just the math of it, if you got rid of the Electoral College. So remember that as we're going through here, because they want every vote to be counted. The team mobilized a network of influential bipartisan elites, elected officials, and retired military officers to speak to the press and announce any effort to suppress counting. So I don't know about this suppressed counting, but we already see this. We already see all these retired colonels or retired generals and stuff coming out. And here's the thing that people don't know or don't realize or don't remember about generals is that you don't get points to become a general. You don't board to become a general. Like, you're not a colonel and you don't get enough points to become a general. A general is a appointed position. So it's a political position. So I got tied up into this too when Mattis got involved in this political business, and I'm like, oh, I like Mattis. He's like this no nonsense. He's got Marine general. He's got all these great quotes about killing everybody in the room and having plans and all this stuff. I really liked him, and I still like him. He's a great guy, right? I think, but he came out against Trump. He's a political appointee. And you see this, like, on Facebook or whatever, this meme was making the rounds where it's like 500, ex-military generals have come out against Trump. Well, yeah, it's a political move. It's a political move. Back to this. The GOP elected officials publicly support Trump's victory and claims of voter fraud, but stop short of supporting the deployment of military forces. Democratic elected officials were proactive in the states where they held offices to ensure votes would be counted and to build bipartisan coalitions to oversee and protect the count. Turn 2 and 3. So that was the first turn. This is the second and third term. The Trump campaign team again attempted to federalize the National Guard to end further vote counting, and called on supporters to turn out in large numbers. The Biden campaign established a bipartisan transition team and mobilized supporters to ensure vote counting was completed thoroughly. So they're casting, and I guess you'll see this as it is, but they're casting Biden as this great unifier and democratic, I don't know, mythical beast that he's not. And they're casting Trump as this tyrant when he's not. It's actually, in some ways, it's actually sort of inverted. The media was like, he needs to issue a mask mandate. Everyone needs to have the same mask rules and COVID-19 lockdown rules. And Trump's like, no, this is for the states to figure out. And the media was begging for him to do it, so they could turn around and call him look at all this tyrannical business. He's making everybody in the whole country do the same thing. Where on the other hand, Biden's come out in moments of questionable clarity, in my opinion. He goes, yeah, we need to have a mask mandate. Everyone needs to have a mask mandate. And you're like, well, how are you going to enforce that? It's completely tyrannical. I don't know. Okay. I can't remember where I was. The officials from both parties sought to block and overturn results in key states, including seeking to use friendly state legislatures and governors to send alternate and additional sets of electors. After dice rolls, most of these efforts failed. The scenario played out. North Kakalaki went to Biden and Florida to Trump, leaving Michigan as the deciding state. A rogue individual destroyed a large amount of ballots believed to have supported Biden, leaving Trump in a narrow electoral win. The governor of Michigan used this abnormality as a justification to send a separate pro-Biden set of electors to D.C. This is so dangerous. And you're going to hear, I think you're going to hear more and more about it. Sending two sets of electors to D.C. What's going to happen? Are they going to get in a gunfight? Are they going to get in a fist fight? Who's going to figure that out? Neither campaign was willing to accept the result and called on their supporters to turn out in the streets to sway the results. The Trump campaign attempted to coerce or influence the individual electors. President Trump also invoked the Insurrection Act. Okay. When you see people calling for action in the streets, who is it? It's Kamala Harris out there going like, no, these protests need to go on forever. She has an organization where she's raising money to bail out rioters. Now, they say that they're there to bail out protesters, but peaceful protesters don't get arrested. Rioters get arrested. Rioters need bailed out. 2 + 2 = 5. The outcome of the scenario is hinged on how the elected officials from the two parties address the separate slate of electors from Michigan. GOP's officials asserted that the president of the Senate, the Vice President Pence, would legally choose to accept or reject electors as he wished. There was no clear resolution of the conflict in the January 6th session of the Congress. The partisans on both sides were still claiming victory, leading to the problem of two claims to commander-in-chief, including access to nuclear codes at noon on January 20th. This is... okay, Game 2. I'm really running out of time. Game 2 is the clear Biden victory. So Biden wins hands down. And spoiler alert, this is the least chaotic game that they played. Speaking again to the tyrant, the tyrant Trump and the, all of the shit that we heard in like the first half of the episode. In this scenario, Biden won outright in the Electoral College and the popular vote. The Trump campaign initially contested the outcome of the votes. Once it became clear that the efforts to overturn that outcome were unlikely to succeed, the Trump campaign pivoted to a strategy of self-preservation and limiting future legal liabilities. So what that means is he just turned around and started doing pardons and doing these political moves to ensure business ventures in the future and to get rid of any kind of legal liability that he might have been open to. So I'm actually going to skip this one because literally it's the most boringest one. It's like, oh, Trump tries to win, he bitches a lot, and then he loses, so he leaves peacefully. literally, that's it. The last bullet point here, and on that one is the GOP elected officials refocus on state responses to COVID-19 while the federal government saw a mass exodus of Trump-aligned political appointees. Now, this is the best one. This is the one... This is the most chaotic, fucking crazy one. And I wish that I could have been in the room when they were role-playing this out. Okay, I need to get a drink, and then we're gonna get into this. Game 3. This is a clear Trump victory. The third scenario posited a comfortable electoral college victory from President Trump. 286 to 255. 252. Sorry, that's 286 to 252. But also a significant popular vote win, 52% to 47%, for former Vice President Biden. So Biden wins the popular vote, 52 to 47, but Trump wins the Electoral College, 286 to 252. The former Vice President Biden, the gameplay ended in a constitutional crisis with threats of secession and the potential for either a decline into authoritarianism or radically revamped set of democratic rules that ensure the popular will prevails. The popular will prevails. Remember, Biden wins 52 to 47. The abolishment of the Electoral College, making D.C. and Puerto Rico states, and other changes, which we talked about. Key moves in actions include Turn 1. The Trump campaign had two main objectives on the outset of this scenario. The first priority was to legitimize the Electoral College results. I mean, I don't know how you can legitimize them. That's how you win. You win the presidency by winning the Electoral College. Ask Hillary Clinton. By pushing narratives that cast doubt on former Vice President Biden's popular vote victory. A popular vote victory doesn't mean Biden wins. You can't cast doubt on this. And portraying a widespread protest as President Trump as anti-American, undemocratic, and promoting mob rule, which is hilarious. Who's promoting mob rule? The Trump campaign planted agent provocateurs into protests throughout the country to ensure these protests turn violent. I mean, it happened in June. The game happened in June. The Antifa riots were already going on in June. Do they think that agent provocateurs sent by President Trump are the ones burning down Portland? Help further a narrative of violent insurrection against a lawfully elected president. The second Trump campaign priority was to consolidate power and reduce or eliminate, quote, the deep state, unquote. The broader institutional resistance to President Trump's agenda for his second term. Specific measures included selective promotions of military personnel with pro-American views. I don't even know why that's a news item. Isn't that what you want? Rushing judicial nominations? I mean, increasing financial incentives for big business and working with states to maximize GOP control through redistricting. The GOP elected officials teams was supportive of Trump's effort to crack down on protests, establishing, quote, law and order, unquote, and defeating the, quote, anarchists, unquote. Was a unifying call, where they pressed President Trump to slow down on the campaign, a more aggressive and overt efforts to consolidate power, partly out of concern that they would lose the support of the moderate Democrats needed to publicly declare Trump's victory legitimate. The most consequential action of the first term was the Biden campaign's retraction of its election night concession. It capitalized on the public's outrage. This is something that happens, by the way, in the Gore Bush v. Gore 2000 in Florida, Gore conceded on election night. And then the next day, he was like, whoa, I unconcede. And the Clintons sent Fast Eddie Rendell down to Florida to start manufacturing ballots and finding them in the trunks of cars and all this other stuff. They found boxes of ballots in a parking garage. Ed Rendell, he was the governor of Pennsylvania at the time. It was so funny. You're like, who believes this? They capitalized on the public's outrage that for the third time in 20 years, a candidate lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College. They also capitalized on the concern about widespread voter suppression before and on Election Day. This is something that I heard on my local news today. Is that there's something with mailing the mail-out ballots in Pennsylvania is suppressing black people. I can't get my head around it, but that's what I heard on the news. The Biden campaign began the game by encouraging 3 states with Democratic governors, North Kakalaki, Wisconsin, and Michigan, to ask for recounts. As the game developed, the governors in 2 of the 3, Wisconsin and Michigan, sent separate slates of electors to counter those sent by the state legislature. Again, here we have it. How these states have got to get their shit together, man. I'm afraid that my state's going to be one of these states that does this. When the shit goes down, we got to be ready. We got to be ready. The GOP failed to convince moderate Democrats in the House to break ranks with the Democratic resistance and support Trump's electoral victory. Much of the GOP's surprise, part of the strategy here was to attack the Electoral College and to claim the certified popular votes in these states where questionable because of voter suppression. At the end of the first term, the country was in the midst of a full-blown constitutional crisis, characterized by political chaos, widespread threats of violence, and sporadic actual violence in the streets, and a hostile, dangerous, highly partisan, and frequently unconstrained information and media environment. So, I mean, take a look around, bros. Take a look around. This blatant attack on the Electoral College should freak everybody out. Like, if you live in flyover country and you're like, my vote doesn't count because of Electoral College, guess what? When they get rid of the Electoral College, literally your vote doesn't count. Literally. It doesn't count. Literally, you might as well just wipe your ass with your vote and flush it down the toilet. Unless you move to California. Unless you move to Southern California, unless you move to New York State or you move to Cook County, that's about it. Turns 2 and 3. The Biden campaign encouraged Western states. Listen to this. The Biden campaign encouraged So, the game that we're playing is that Trump clearly wins. He wins the Electoral College, 286 to 252. Listen to turn 2 here from Biden. The Biden campaign encourages Western states, particularly California, but also Oregon and Washington, and collectively known as Cascadia, to secede from the Union unless congressional Republicans agreed to a set of structural reforms to fix our democratic system to ensure majority rule. With advice from President Obama, the Biden campaign submitted a proposal to give statehood to Washington DC and Puerto Rico, divide California into 5 states to more accurately represent the population in the Senate, requires the Supreme Court justices to retire at 70 and eliminate the Electoral College to ensure that a candidate who wins to the popular vote becomes president. I found a typo in this. Like, hey, George Soros, get a fucking copy editor. As the scenario involved, the Trump team focuses efforts on driving a wedge into the desperate and, in the view of many participants, fragile Democratic coalition. For example, during the second term, Trump gave an interview to The Intercept in which he stated that he would have lost the election if Bernie Sanders had been nominated. The Trump team's approach in turns 2 and 3 also emphasized creating the conditions to force the Biden campaign into taking provocative, unprecedented action, such as subverting California's secession or sending a second slate of electors that played to a broader narrative of the Democrats attempting to orchestrate an illegal coup. The team also tried to position President Trump as a unifier, working with the top CEOs, holding a unifying event at the Lincoln Memorial, offering to establish a commission to review electoral rules, and as privatizing safety and security in the face of radical groups supporting Joe Biden and trying to destroy America. We all know that America must be destroyed. That's the name of one of my favorite albums, by the way. Gwar. It was like 1991 or 1992, maybe. America must be destroyed. One of the most consequential moves was that Team Biden on January 6th provoked a breakdown in the joint sessions of Congress by getting the House of Representatives to agree to award the presidency to Biden based on the alternative pro-Biden submissions sent by the pro-Biden governors. Pence and the GOP refused to accept this, declaring instead that Trump was reelected under the Constitution because of his Electoral College victory. This partisan division remained unresolved because neither side backed down, and on January 20th arrived without a single president-elect entitled to be commander-in-chief after noon that day. It was unclear what the military would do in this separation. All right, I'm only going to spend a few minutes on this, the fourth game, which was a narrow Biden win. The final scenario explored a narrow Biden win where he leads with less than 1% of the popular vote the day after the election. Is predicted to win 278 electoral votes. Fox News is among the major networks that called the election for Biden, although the Trump campaign does not concede, setting up an intense competition that concludes with an uneasy and combative but ultimately listen to this. A competition that concludes with an uneasy and combative but ultimately successful transition. So it seems like the only time that a peaceful transition happens is when Biden wins. But when Trump wins, all fucking hell breaks loose in these war games. So when you read in the first page that this was a bipartisan, I mean, I don't know what that means anymore. I don't think it means anything anymore. But those documents are available online. I read right from them. I didn't edit them in any kind of way. And to me, they're terrifying. And I'm not being sponsored by any security food company yet. But I suggest that the months between November and January are going to be very chaotic. And just if you give a fuck about anything that I have to say about it, or if you're freaked out about this role-playing game or this war game as I am, you might want to grab some emergency food someplace. Get a couple extra rounds if you can find them for whatever weapons that you have. Buy a couple get a couple extra magazines. I actually got my shipment of smoke grenades the other day. I was very excited. My wife was like, "What is this?" I'm like, I fucking bought some smoke grenades, bro. They're fucking sweet. Anyhow, I'm John, and this has been the Wargame conspiracy, the election Wargame conspiracy. I'm not sure what I'm going to name it yet. It's something about a conspiracy of Wargames. Wargame conspiracy.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Hey, did you learn something? Did you laugh? Supporting me is a way for you to be a part of the Abercast and ensure its growth and sustainability. It also means I can create a normal schedule for shows and bonus shows, as well as the exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. By supporting the show, you are not only a listener, but you are a part of the show. You supporting the show gives me a way to offer fun rewards as a thank you for showing your appreciation and support for our projects. Do you have an idea for a reward that you don't see? Let me know. My supporters are my partners. I currently pay for you to listen to the Abercast. Not only do I pay the hosting bills out of my own pocket, I volunteer my time and talent to each and every episode of the Abercast. The price of books, the time and resources of reading and researching, the massive amounts of gin and tonic needed, the equipment it takes to record the shows, the time and resources it takes to create the bonus material, and the cost to maintain the internet presence. Is it worth your support? I don't know. I'm proud of the Abercast, and I feel like I'm improving all the time. In addition to creating the show that you dig and that you are excited about, I also have a full-time commitment and other obligations. So why financial support? All of the supporters help me focus my time on the quality and development of the podcast. And what if you can't afford, $1 or $3 or $10 or whatever a month? Believe me, I get that. There are many degrees of support, but if you can't support the show financially, please consider leaving a 5-star rate and review on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget that you could sign into the mailing list and still unlock a lot of bonus content. Thank you. I cannot put into words how much it means to me that you listen to the show each time I post a new episode. Your feedback, support, and love of the stories that we talk about here is what keeps me going.